viewers. Welcome back to another engaging episode of Manager's Mantra, where we connect with industry leaders who are shaping the future of business management. Today we have with us Mr. Gaurav Banka, Chief Risk Officer at Aviva India. Gaurav is a seasoned risk management professional with a career spanning more than 2 decades. He has a rich experience in varied facets of the life insurance industry, including enterprise risk management, governance and control, customer experience, and process excellence. Let's jump right into this insightful discussion with Gaurav Banka and Business Standard BSmart Deputy Editor Abhishek Chatterjee.
A very good evening, Gaurav, and a warm welcome to this new session of Manager's Mantra. We are very glad to have you today with us, and it's really I'm really thankful that you took your time and participating in this session.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. A very good evening to you and everyone listening. And I'm glad, to come over here and share some of my experiences with the audience. So thank you so much for the invite.
The pleasure is us, Gaurav. So let us start discussing the questions. Uh,
Mhm.
Talking about the insurance sector, it has evolved over the past few years. Now, it would be really, really interesting to know from you how has it evolved over the past few years as insurers embrace AI, automation, hyper personalization. How can the industry balance innovation with customer trust, fairness, and transparency?
Well, very interesting. And what's really interesting over here is that there is a real paradox in the insurance industry, or I would rather say there is a paradox right now in all the industries. Majority of the CEOs that you meet, especially in the insurance sector or the financial services sector, say that AI is their top investment priority. But when you go and ask the customers, only about 1 in 3, I would say, actually trust an AI driven insurance decision. So the boardrooms are definitely racing ahead, and the customers are saying, hang on, not so fast. And honestly, I think the customers have a point. So innovation alone doesn't earn you anything. As we use more of our customers' data and more AI in our decision, both in professional or personal lives, trust actually becomes the thing that separates the good insurers from the rest of it. The way I think about it, AI should be like a co-pilot. It can fly the plane brilliantly for long stretches. It doesn't feel tired. It has the ability to spot things human may miss, but you still want a pilot in the cockpit, especially when the weather just goes haywire or it just turns. And that's exactly our philosophy at Aviva India. AI will help us augment human judgment. It doesn't replace it. So, yes, we use it to make underwriting decisions faster, to detect and catch fraud, to serve our customers better, and to personalize the experiences for our customers. But every one of those processes has a human oversight. It has strong governance embedded and explainability built in. And the last word that matters, if I can't explain it to a customer why a decision was made about their policy, I shouldn't be making that decision with a machine. Trust can't be, something like a paint that you can apply at the end. It has to be at the foundation. So the trust is the foundation on how these systems are built, designed, and rolled out for the customers to experience and for them to benefit.
Thank you so much, Gaurav. Uh, Gaurav, data, the significance of data is massive now. It's playing a huge role in determining the success and failure of a company. Companies who couldn't capitalize on data provide probably, they will fall back in the competition with their
Mhm.
rivals. Now, as insurance becomes increasingly data driven, where should companies draw the line between personalization and customer privacy?
Okay. Um, so I would draw the line at two words. I would say purpose and consent. It's like, if I have to give you a real life analogy, I would say think about a good tailor. We all have experienced and gone and seen a good tailor. He measures exactly what he needs for your suit and nothing more. He will never ask you, give me your bank account statement or share your other personal details with me, or health insurance. So data in insurance should work the same way, in my personal view. Personalization should help customers get better protection and better experiences, not feeling them like they're being watched or they're being judged. And that is why it is very, very important that the customers must clearly understand what data we are collecting, why we are collecting it, and how it benefits them. And in plain, simple words, I would say transparency actually is no longer just a compliance requirement or a checks box. It is actually a business imperative. And the insurers who get this right will win in the long game, and win customer trust. There is then also a question of discipline. Just because technology lets us collect more doesn't mean we should. Minimum data, maximum value, that's responsible data stewardship. And that is going to become the real differentiator in any of the industry, especially in the financial services sector. One more thing, as a chief risk officer, which is close to my heart, something I think about often, as the AI gets smarter, we have to make sure that personalization doesn't quietly create a bias or exclude certain set of people. That's where human oversight and governance and some of the guardrails stay very, very important. And the stakes are big, especially in India. If you look at the current, from 2025, if you look at the insurance penetration, it's roughly about, if I'm not wrong, 3.7% of the GDP, and that's around half the global average. So millions of people are going to decide whether to trust this company, this industry, and that is why privacy has to be done right, and that is how we'll earn customers in the future.
Gaurav, as you know, there will be a lot of young leaders, the next crop of leaders who will be, very interested to join the insurance sector. But before joining, they would also love to know the challenges, the opportunities. Let us talk about the challenges. What, according to you, are some of the toughest challenges facing the sector, and how can young leaders joining the industry tackle them?
Oh, wonderful question. So, I think one of the biggest challenges in the industry right now is the protection gap. So awareness of health and financial security is rising, but actual insurance adoption is still quite low, especially, for people when they step out, to bigger cities. That gap between knowing and doing is the industry's hardest problem. Second, I think the risk environment itself has become far more complex. You've seen climate events all around, you see cyber threats, longer lifespans, changing environment expectations. Our traditional risk models, especially in the insurance industry, they were not built for this. So they need rethinking and not just updating. And lastly, trust at scale, as I mentioned earlier. Customers actually want simple products, honest communications, seamless processing of their claims. And I think it is our duty as an industry, as an insurer, that we have to deliver all of that while staying inside the regulatory and risk guardrails. And that's genuinely a hard balancing act. It's not easy. Now, where I'm actually optimistic about young leaders, as I said earlier, India's penetration stands at 3.7%, which is about half of the global average. Some people actually see that this is a problem. But what I see, this is a headroom, enormous headroom for innovation, inclusion, and growth. So if a young person has to come to me for advice, I would just say stay curious, build a real understanding of both technology and risk, and never ever lose sight of the customer. In fact, I tell people I usually interact with, my peers, other people at the company, that risk management is actually like brakes on a car. They're not there to slow you down. They exist so you can drive faster but safely. So young leaders who combine that analytical thinking with genuine empathy for the customers will be the one that will be shaping this industry's future.
Wonderful, Gaurav, full of rich insights. Uh, now that you have spoken about risks, let us, tackle that risk question in a detailed way. What are some of the emerging risks likely to shape the future of insurance, from climate-linked risks to the health risk to growing digital interdependencies? What is your take on this?
Right. Sure. So I think you've mentioned one, and it surprises most of the people. So climate risk is actually now already a health risk. It's not a 2050 problem. Heat stress, air pollution, vector-borne diseases, extreme weather conditions, these are showing up in health and life insurance claims today, both in terms of their frequency and in terms of their complexity. So I think that is one of the emerging risks that I see. The second one is digital interdependence. So today, the government of India has a vision of digital India. So we've connected everything: individuals, hospitals, insurers, banks, and that's wonderful. I'm not complaining about it, but until it isn't, it's like having a power grid. One substation fails and suddenly there are multiple dark cities. A disruption in one corner of the ecosystem can now actually cascade across all of it, and that's a new category of a systemic risk that I feel. And closely linked to that is the cyber risk. If I remember correctly, in India, we saw a reported cybercrime cases increase about 25 to 24% in 2025. And as we've taken this path of digitization, going more digital, the exposure of ordinary customers and businesses both, grows with it. Then there is a quieter shift, demographics, lifestyle. People are no longer, living uh, very healthy lives. The chronic diseases are rising, lifestyle diseases are increasing. It's all happening because of the work patterns that are changed. So traditional insurance products simply weren't designed for these protection needs. What does this mean for all of us? Honestly, our job can no longer be just playing claims for something that go wrong. It actually has to be helping our customers, and that is what Aviva India is doing today. We have to build healthier communities. We have to help customers anticipate, prevent, manage risks, manage their health before an event can actually happen. The insurers who actually combine these sharp risk analytics with resilience focused solutions, they are the ones who will own the future and the customers in the long run.
Thank you so much, Gaurav, for the detailed explanation. Uh, now, we have spoken about the challenges, and we don't want to demotivate the ones who want to join the sector. Let us also talk about the opportunities for them in the sector. So, what, according to you, are the top opportunities in the sector for the management students?
So honestly, I speak to a lot of students, within the family, friends, outside. I think most students think of insurance as a boring financial servicing as job. Honestly, if you ask me, it's one of the most interesting intersections in businesses today. You have, risk, technology, data analytics, customer experience, all colliding into one industry. And you asked me where, what's the opportunity. I would rephrase it as, where is the excitement. So risk management naturally, and I'm not saying this because that's my job, my 9 to 5 job. As risks become more interconnected, we spoke about climate, cyber, health, demographics. There's a growing demand for people who can spot these emerging trends and turn them into business strategy. Data and AI are the other big opportunities. Underwriting, claims, fraud detection, customer engagement, they're all being reinvented, and analytically driven talent is short in supply in these areas. But the biggest opportunity, I think, is meaning. Insurance is ultimately about building resilience for our customers, their families. If young people can combine a commercial acumen, digital skills, and a customer first mindset, you won't just have a career, you will have an impact. You will have an impact on your customers and on the society as a whole.
Thank you so much, Gaurav. Um Gaurav, if you want to join a specific sector, you can't simply do that. You need to have specific skill sets for that. You need to groom yourself. You need to be ready for the sector. Now, what according to you are the most important skills someone has to have to sustain in the sector?
Absolutely. And that's very important. So first, I would say look beyond the stereotype. This sector definitely blends strategy, analytics, technology, customer experience, risk management. And I would say it's a genuinely dynamic place to build a right career now. Secondly, the skill I would say is curiosity and adaptability. With AI, new data models, digital distribution, the industry you join will look different in 5 years. You have to be willing to keep reinventing yourself. And lastly, develop a real sense for risk. My whenever my CEO and I have a conversation, he always mentions one thing, and I've seen very few CEOs mention this, that everybody has to be a risk manager first. So climate, cyber, health, operational resilience. Future leaders must be able to connect these emerging risks to business decisions and customer outcomes. That skill is now and in future going to be the gold mine.
Thank you so much. I'm sure a lot of the viewers listening to this, who will be listening to this interaction, will find this really insightful, and it will, really ready them, help them to prepare themselves for joining the sector and come out with flying colors. If I have to ask you of, some of the top two suggestions from your side to all the management students who want to join the sector, before we wrap up the session, what would that be?
So I would just say, after 20 years in this field, and beyond all the technical skills, what sustains a career is the ability to build, trust in your customers, communicate clearly, and truly understand them. Technology, does sharpen the decisions, but insurance as its core is a people business. So combine, your empathy for your customers with analytical rigor, sound judgment, and you will not just survive in this industry, you will lead this. That's my short and sweet advice to anyone who's looking to join this industry.
Thank you so much, Gaurav. Thank you so much for those insights, for sharing your rich experience. I am sure it will be loved by the viewers who will be watching this session. Thank you so much once again for taking out your time and joining in the session. And it would be great to have you again in any of our future sessions of Be Smart Business Standard. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Abhishek. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm glad, I got the invite. I hope, some of the insights will be able to help our, young minds and, take this industry, which is very, very important for, everyone in the community. More and more people will join it and understand how important, a job insurance is. Good luck to everyone. And thank you so much for inviting me once again.
Thanks.
That's a wrap on this episode of Manager's Mantra. Thank you, Gaurav, for sharing your rich experience and provide career tips to the B scholars. Be Smart viewers, we hope you found this conversation helpful. Share your thoughts with us at bsmart.edit@bsmail.in. Follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram for more such insightful and inspiring content. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing.